It's early May and the perfect time to get out and do a bit of macro photography. There are spring flowers everywhere, like this garlic mustard, always a favourite of mine to photograph. Not all the flowers are out on this one, as you can see. I noticed that the leaves in the background formed a kind of V-shaped black triangle, so I adjusted my composition here to make use of it. A small fly, I don't know what species, landed on it while I was taking this photo, and I rather like that added detail. Garlic mustard looks really good when you shoot it from directly above, like this shot where the flowers are the only part of the frame that's in focus. Not sure about the dark patch at the top of the frame in this shot though. I think it might be a bit distracting. Another favourite of mine is the dandelion. It gets a bad rap as a weed, but a weed is really just a wildflower growing where someone doesn't want it to. I actually think dandelions are really rather pretty. Again, this shot taken from directly above, looking down, works really well. In this case, the very shallow depth of field is not really visible. This was taken at f2.8, which gives that really smooth background, and the fact that the centre of the flower is out of focus isn't particularly noticeable. This is also at f2.8, but taken from the side. The out of focus centre is much more noticeable now, and I don't think this works anywhere near as well. The background is also much more cluttered in this shot. I tried to get a shot with lots of dandelions, but only one of them in focus. This is the best I managed to get on this occasion, so I clearly need to keep trying. I came across this ant's nest in the long grass. There are lots of ants in this area, and I have to be vigilant when photographing flowers and insects, as it's very easy to stand or kneel on a nest and only realise it when I have ants crawling all over me. In this case, the ants have built up the nest along some blades of grass, forming a tower several inches high. Not something I see very often. I know this nest quite well. It's long established and no doubt most of it is underground. Not an artistic photo, but I think it's interesting all the same. There are lots of small snails about too. I think this one might be just an empty shell, whereas this really tiny one is probably alive. I tried to use the blades of grass to act as a frame around the snail, but I don't think it really works because in this case the frame isn't particularly attractive. I could crop in a lot further, but then the fact that the centre of the snail shell is not in focus would become obvious, and it would spoil the shot. The depth of field in macro shots is often razor thin. I love hoverflies, I think they're really cool. They're such great little characters and they're superb flyers. They're mostly mimics of bees or wasps, so they're essentially pretending to be dangerous insects that have a sting, whereas actually they're completely harmless. Most species feed on flower pollen, and if you look closely you can see some pollen grains sticking to this one. I think it's most likely one of the Syrphus hoverflies, but there are several species and it's difficult to tell them apart. Whatever it is, it's almost certainly a male because the eyes meet on the top of the head. Bluebells are in flower at the moment, and I'm always on the lookout for insects on them, as they can often make for really nice photos. This hoverfly has grey and black markings on the abdomen, rather than yellow and black, so I think this is Platycheirus albimanus. Notice the gap between the eyes on top of the head. If you see a hoverfly with no gap on top of the head, you can be certain it's a male, but if there is a gap then it might be a female, but it might be a male as males of some species also have a gap. But in this species the gap does indeed indicate that this one's a female. It's not just hoverflies, of course. There are lots of other insects around at this time of year. This is a dockbug, Coreus marginatus. These are full-grown adults which have overwintered and are now looking to mate and lay their eggs. Later in the year you'll only see the young nymphs. They're a lot easier to photograph than hoverflies because they don't move nearly as quickly. This is a pair of green shieldbugs, Palomena prasina, very common in these parts. Like the dockbugs, these will have overwintered as adults and are now mating and laying eggs that will hatch into nymphs, They go through about 5 instars before reaching their adult form in the autumn. Now, all the photos I've shown so far were taken with a Canon 100mm macro lens, which is pretty good for this sort of photo. But it can be difficult to photograph really small subjects, because the closest distance you can focus is about 4 inches. I could add extension tubes to reduce that distance, but when I came across this little guy, I decided instead to switch lenses to a Canon MPE65, which is a strange beast, but it allows me to get really close and even crank up the magnification if I want to. It's quite difficult to use though, as there's no autofocus and the focus ring also acts as a zoom. I used a special tripod to get the camera into the right position to take this photo, which is quite deep in the long grass. So this is one of our smallest native ladybirds, and is only about 3 or 4 millimeters long. It goes by the Latin name of Subcoccinella vigintiquattuorpunctata, which I'm guessing translates as 24-spot ladybird, because that's its English name. We tend to think of ladybirds as voracious hunters of aphids, but this species actually feeds on plants. In biology speak, it's phytophagous. In this case, it's feeding on this blade of grass, and you can see the trail of damage it's caused just behind it. That's it for today. I hope you enjoyed this short video, and if you did, then please hit the like button and consider subscribing to this channel. I'm experimenting with different ways of presenting my photos so that more people get a chance to see them. Most of my photos are only ever seen by me, which I think is a bit of a shame. Let me know what you think in the comments below. I'll probably do another video when I have some more photos to share. Until then, enjoy your day, thanks for watching, and I'll leave you with my favourite photo of the day.